Hello and welcome to Everyday Tarot, your daily dive into the divine wisdom of the tarot. I'm your host, Camille A. Saunders, healer, tarot enthusiast, and your local witch next door. And today I'm talking about the Knight of Swords. Whether you're a seasoned tarot reader or just starting to explore, this podcast offers daily insights, intuitive messages, and practical advice drawn from the cards. Each episode is designed to help you connect with your inner wisdom, find clarity in your decisions, and tap into the energy of the universe. Tune in every day, Monday through Friday, for fresh perspectives and empowering guidance from the tarot as interpreted by me. If you love the show, the best way to support it is by listening daily, leaving a review, and subscribing or following in your favorite podcast app. For monthly hangouts, tarot Q&As, and more, you can join the Everyday Tarot Patreon family. If you're local to the greater Puget Sound area, check out my Let's Talk Tarot meetup group for the latest event postings. If you're not local to my area, you can join me for a virtual tarot card creation event on Friday, June 20th at 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. I'll give you a list of recommended supplies, we'll meet online, and I'll walk you through the process of creating your own cards. Get the date on your calendar now and be on the lookout for the sign-up page coming soon. If you're interested in my free PDF with the 2025 5-card tarot spread I created just for you at the beginning of this year, you can get that by joining my newsletter list. My weekly newsletter always has the most up-to-date information on upcoming events, presentations, musings, and info and photos of my day-to-day life. If you don't already know, I'm a sex and relationships therapist seeing clients virtually all over Washington state. I love working with queer, poly, and witchy clients. If you'd like to work with a therapist that doesn't judge you, helps you learn how to deal with anxiety, chronic pain or illness, communication issues, self-advocacy, and sex, head to my website and book a free consultation now. You can find the links for any of these offers in the show notes or on my website, CamilleASaunders.com/everydaytarot, in addition to the images of the cards I pull. All right, so we are almost done with Season 8, where I'm talking all about the Suit of Swords, going through each card, one per episode. If you haven't listened to my other seasons yet, you can check those out. In Season 1, I talked tarot basics. In Seasons 2 and 3, I went through the major arcana and the overview of the 4 suits. In Season 4, I talked tarot in pop culture. In Season 5, I went through 13 common tarot spreads. Season 6, the Suit of Wands. Season 7, the Suit of Pentacles. And right now we're in Season 8. I'm going to be wrapping up shortly, but on the Suit of Swords. So like I said, we're getting close to wrapping up this season. If you want to hear an episode dedicated to an overview of the whole Suit of Swords, you can check out episode 37. And today I'm talking about the Knight of Swords. So if you have a tarot deck accessible, go ahead and take it out and find your Knight of Swords and take a look at it and think about what images or symbols you see as you look at the card. So some common ones are like a horse rearing, right? Depictions of a knight, anything indicating action or sort of that charging into battle. There's also often a level of thinking or like being in your head, sometimes in like a positive way here, but it is often like depicted as just a knight in that way. I'm looking at a couple of my decks right now in the Anima Mundi deck by Megan Weirer-Lendon. We have I have to look up what the particular bird is, but a peregrine falcon depicted on the card, and it's sort of swooping in from the right-hand side of the card. It almost looks like it's gonna, either grab some critter that's gonna eat or it's about to land. And with this, it says you're strong, driven, and ambitious, perhaps embarking on new adventures. However, do not do so in haste, where you are so focused on your goals that you are blind to obstacles. So it's all about action, ambition, determination, communication, haste, and rebellion. Right, so it is the sort of like you're swooping in, right? You're excited to grab something new, but it also is telling us, right, that we might encounter obstacles and we need to make sure to look out for those. In the next deck, I'm looking at the Sacerobito Tarot deck by Stasia Burrington. We see a person, their head is sort of turned down. They're holding a sword with both hands sort of in front of them with the tip up, and they're holding onto the hilt. We see like a black sky behind them with stars twinkling. And then I don't know exactly how to describe it, but like, so it's very symmetrical, this card, except for the two hands, one's placed on top of the other. But we see sort of like the two sides of a butterfly, and it almost looks like it's been sliced in half by the sword. Um, so I'm going to see what they talk about in the deck guidebook for this card. So I'm not totally sure what that is supposed to be depicting here. It says, perhaps not the most tactful, this knight is frank and clear about her actions and moves swiftly to cut through bullshit to get stuff done. She works logically, a la Spock, intelligent, authoritative, and blunt, action-oriented, aggressive, can be a bit of a know-it-all, and ambitious. So it is this sort of, right, like cutting swiftly, to get things done, like working logically, right? We have that intelligent, like sort of like thorough planning, like goal oriented aspect of the sword suit being the air element. Um, but then also, right, if you think about knights, medieval knights, how they're often depicted, right? They are the boots on the ground. I guess not literally because they're often on a horse, but they are, right, they're in the field. They are going into battle. They are, right, taking their swords and they're going in and they're getting stuff done. They can be, right, action oriented, aggressive. Like that is how they were trained to do so. But then when we encounter, right, a knight, maybe not in the context of battle, right, they're going to seem like pretty intense, I would say. It says that they're also like ambitious, again, moving swiftly to cut through things to get stuff done, clear on their actions, but sometimes can be sort of maybe like harshly direct in some ways. And lastly, in the Desert Illuminations Tarot deck by Lindsay D. Williams, the swords are renamed to daggers in this deck. And we see a horse, so sort of we see the more traditional depiction of the knight, so a person on horseback. She has like a dagger lifted in her left hand. She's got like a hat on and like maybe even a skirt, which I love. We can't totally see her legs, so maybe she's riding side saddle. The horse is sort of rearing back, so right, it's only on its back legs. And we have this in the background, like turquoise background, and then with like smears of blue. So we almost get this like very action oriented background as well. Like it doesn't look like a static background, but like we don't just see blue sky or anything like that, right? Maybe the sky is turquoise, maybe these are clouds coming in or something. But it has these like streaks across the card, and we actually don't see like all of the horse. We see like the body and the head, but we can't see its legs really. We can just kind of see that it's rearing up. And in the Anima Mundi deck, where the falcon is swooping in, right, again, we don't totally see the whole bird. We see most of it, but we don't see all of its tail feathers. So there's always this aspect of like being very fast moving, right? So fast that like they become a blur, perhaps, or that you don't really see them coming in that way. All right, I'm trying to find the description for this one. Okay, here we go. So, for the Knight of Daggers, a fierce woman mounted on a powerful horse charges forward into battle, wielding her dagger up to the sky in triumph. She's determined on her mission, and nothing is stopping her in her path. The sky is swirling with clouds, symbolic of movement and action. When the Knight of Daggers appears, she motivates you to take action towards your success. She is smart and quick-witted. When you set your mind on a goal, she is telling you to stop at nothing to pursue it. Go kick some major ass with this dagger's energy. Let the Knight of Daggers guide you towards crushing your goals, and you will undoubtedly see success. There is no need to worry about the challenges along the way because you are ready for battle and know all the strategies to win. So this one is sort of saying, right, that actually, like, you're prepared, right? Like, you're a knight, you trained for this, you're crushing your goals, right? There might be challenges along the way, but you're actually ready for them, right? You don't need to have hesitation necessarily in that way. So in the Library of Esoterica, Tarot Book by Taschen, they speak about this card as bold, brave, and without judgment. It says the Knight of Swords encourages self-assured action, but also warns against impulsiveness and impetuous behavior. In the Tarot and Astrology book by Corinne Kenner, they talk about that this card is associated with Gemini and the Knight of Swords. It says, Knights, the adventurers and rescuers of the deck, are inherently fiery individuals. Each one combines the element of fire with the element of its own suit. In that regard, the Knight of Swords embodies the combustible combination of fire with air. He can literally ride like the wind. The Knight of Swords is probably the one who best matches most people's conception of a knight. Skillful, brave warrior. The armor is always polished, his horse is always ready to ride. Occasionally he can be indecisive, but even more rarely he can be deceitful. But the Knight of Swords didn't just memorize the code of chivalry, he helped write it. He is truly a knight's knight. He's well suited for the battlefield of ideas. He's enthusiastic, energetic, and fearless. He's an explorer and soars through the stratosphere of ideas and imagination. He's fearless and adventurous. There's no sign of the ground beneath his feet. The Knight of Swords also represents the mutable air sign of Gemini, which makes him versatile and quick thinking. He has lofty goals and aspirations, and he seeks them in the heady atmosphere of the clouds and sky. He operates at a higher elevation than most other elementals. He's a migratory creature, never in one place for long, and always setting off on an expedition or an adventure. Like his major arcana counterparts, the lovers, he's interested in a wide range of people and experiences. He loves to exchange ideas, and he communicates with style and wit. The Knight of Swords rules the third decan of Taurus and the first and second decans of Gemini. In a natural horoscope, his primary domain is the third house of neighborhood and communication. It's interesting to talk about Taurus and Gemini because we are in Taurus season now as I'm recording this, although about to switch over into Gemini season, which is an air sign, right? So we have this level of the swords aligned with the air sign time of year. And they call this card the soaring intellect of mutable air. All right. In the Fearless Tarot book by Elliot Adam, they talk about that the Knight of Swords can be about slowing down, actually. It says he's always striving to prove he's a successful adult, an ambitious man. No matter how much he achieves, he can't seem to be happy or rest. The only thing he knows how to do is push ahead. Once he has completed his objective, he doesn't even know how to absorb it. We've all been there. With his red plume and cloak, he's already rushing ahead to the next task, driving himself mercilessly to win, hoping that someone will acknowledge his value through deeds. Are you rushing through life? Do you stop to savor successes you've already achieved, or do you race ahead toward the next task? Do you feel guilty about resting when there's so much to do? Do you cram your day with so many activities that you feel drained and depressed? The Knight of Swords reminds us that this is no way to go through life. In fact, it can be downright harmful to our health. In this card's imagery, the horse represents our physical body. The horse is uneasy, anxious, tight, and trying to outrun his rider. The horse looks back at his master with an expression that says, "Seriously? You want me to run faster?" The knight brandishing the sword represents the cruel taskmaster within, the nasty voice that tells us to shut up and keep going, even when we feel we are going to drop. Western culture glorifies suffering through work. When someone in America says you are a hard worker, that's almost as good as being one of the troops. She worked until the day she died is another one of our highest honors. But is your tombstone really going to be inscribed with all the hours you heroically put into your job? Is that really an authentic encapsulation of what you do? Why don't Americans allow themselves a siesta like other countries? Is it a sin to have more vacation time than one paltry week a year? Today, you must take responsibility for your own health and wellness by scheduling relaxation. No one is going to say, "Boy, he needs a break, let's make him take one." Working toward an achievement is marvelous, but as with everything, it needs balance. The Oracle at Delphi had a saying that guaranteed a satisfying life: nothing too much. That includes work, activity, play, food, drinking, everything. Slow down today. Turn off the phone and take a relaxing walk or sit in the yard for 20 minutes. Stop being a slave to clocks, demands, emails, texts, televisions, and social media updates. You aren't living a full life if you're constantly cracking the whip across your own back. Balance work with rest today, and your body will thank you. The Knight of Swords can also represent another person who is rushing through life. They are often so fixated on their own goals and destinations that they don't care who they are running over with to succeed. He's not a bad person, but he can be very self-absorbed. Knights can represent youngish adults of any gender. Knights are usually people who are phasing out of one way of life into another. So, right, this iteration of the card is really telling us to slow down. And I think I need that message today. I'm going into a vacation weekend, which is lovely, but also there's a lot planned. I have a lot to prepare for, packing, cooking, organizational things, driving through traffic, all sorts of stuff. And I know sometimes when I'm looking around waiting for someone to tell me to rest, it often doesn't happen. I would say it usually doesn't happen. And so, right, we have to figure out ways to do that for ourselves and then also figure out ways to not feel bad about it, right? As this book talked about, right, in a lot of Western culture, there is this like idealized version of working hard, which can be fulfilling. And also, like, you don't have to be a hard worker to be a good person. You're allowed to be a good person without that. You're allowed to be chronically ill and exist and be a good person and work if you want or able to. But also, like, work, right, can mean a lot of different things. I was talking to a client earlier this week about how, as a stay at home parent, their work is not often like taken, or it's often taken advantage of, or that's not considered because they don't get a paycheck for that. And that can just be a really sort of like way that it just kind of automatically makes it easy for other people to, right, perhaps, again, sort of the knight idea, like run over you with their own ideas or their ideas about contribution or what contribution looks like in a family or a household. Um, and this card is telling us, right, we have to be cautious of that. That again, like culture, work culture, other people can really have us just steamrolling ahead was the word that came to mind, but right, charging ahead like a knight on a horse and just going as fast as possible for as long as possible. But again, if you think about a knight on a horse, like eventually one or both of those people is going to get tired, either the horse or the person. And you can't do that forever, right? Or if you do, you're going to literally like run yourself into the ground. And that is called burnout. um, and so, right, we have to figure out ways that, again, not to just rest so that we can work more, but also rest and take time to ourselves and slow down so we don't get kind of caught up in this hustle culture is what I would call it. But all right, so let's look in the Jessica Dora book, Tarot for Change. They talk about mindfulness and how, right, lots of people have been like utilizing mindfulness or meditation for hundreds, I would say thousands of years. And only now, sort of in like Western culture, is that being like researched and studied and like proven about how good it is. But a lot of people have known this for a long time and been practicing it, and that they didn't need um, research to tell them that. Or, you know, they did their own research or talking to other people and experiencing it themselves. But anyway, it says, perhaps more than ever, in an age where attention is literally harvested through social media platforms, they make money through advertising, the ability to choose a focus and fix one's gaze there is an imperative psychological skill. As we saw with the Page of Swords, so last episode, if you haven't listened to that, check it out. But the clouds in the background of this card often symbolize the activities of the mind, and the symbolism extends throughout the entire Swords court. So, right, we have the page, we have the knight, and then next we have queen and king. It says, here we see the Knight of Swords surrounded by jagged clouds, their distinct shape suggesting the kind of distraction that's intense and difficult to ignore. Nevertheless, the Knight of Swords charges forward, gaze fixed on what matters. He demonstrates the kind of laser-like focus that mindfulness practice can help us develop, while at the same time revealing just how hard it can be. The path towards what's precious is paved with endless bids for our attention. Through practices that build our capacity to focus, we build the mental muscle that's needed to resist getting pulled too far out where we don't belong. It says the Yoga Sutras, believed to have been compiled before 400 CE, and which were authored by the mysterious sage or many sages who went by the name Patanjali, teach that mindfulness practice, or the practice of concentration on a single subject, is the best way to prevent the obstacles and their accompaniments. In this interpretation of the Yoga Sutras, Sri Swami Sachinanda writes that the point here is that we should not keep changing our object of concentration. When you decide on one thing, stick to whatever happens. Hundreds of years later, this wisdom has replicated in behavioral therapies that encourage clients to identify personal values and then choose behaviors that move them toward and not away from those values. Sachinanda continues, there is no value in digging shallow wells in 100 places. Decide on one place and dig deep. And whether you're working with the Yoga Sutras, a mindfulness-based behavioral therapy, the tarot, or a combination of the three, the instruction is the same. Identify your values, and she says, as my grandfather would say, stay the course, whatever happens. Even when the clouds are jagged and the thunder loud, when there is anxiety, loneliness, lust, grief, guilt, commit and accept what you need in order to stay on your path. Fix your gaze and keep going. All right, so let's dive in and see what the cards have to say today on this topic. And I'm going to be thinking about, right, what we just heard in that book about, right, sort of the mindfulness-based practices, and even how, right, like often I would say in work or other aspects of culture, like we are asked to do many things, right? There's a lot of multitasking going on, and I think multitasking has gotten glorified. Maybe not for everyone, but I would say like it's definitely seen as a positive ability. I think especially in the workplace or, parenting or other places where we're pulled in many, many directions at once. Um, but I think also, right, using the idea of mindfulness as like noticing things, right? Pausing, focusing attention on the things you want to, giving your all to it, right? As I talked about in the book, like digging, don't dig 100 wells because they're going to be very shallow. It's going to be a lot of work to do all of that. Just focus on, right, one or a couple at a time, right? Dig it all the way and then maybe move on to the next one. So how do we, right, actually do that? Because I think, right, it sounds nice. Sure, I just need to focus more. Or I just need to, narrow down my things. I think also in the same way that in the other book they were talking about rest, right, and slowing down. Slowing down is often a lot about intentionality, right? We can do a lot of the same things throughout the day. It might look the same from the outside if you were watching someone do it, but if you're doing it with intentionality, like I know for me, like I block off my lunch on my calendar, I block off rest, I block off a walk on my calendar, because often if I don't necessarily make time for those things. And so having it on my calendar helps me be accountable to myself, helps me not overschedule myself. It also helps me, right, take a break from work or, walk away from the computer or some of the things that can really suck us in. Um, and realize that, oh yeah, actually, like, oftentimes once I move away from it, it's like, oh yeah, either the answer becomes very clear as to what I was like mulling over, I realize like, it's just not that important. It helps me let go of that sort of like perfectionistic tendencies as well. All right, let's pull a card here. Oh, interesting. I got the cartographer, a crossroads, and exploration, it says, but I pulled it in reverse. So let's take a look at what that card is about. And I'm pulling from The Citadel, a Fantasy Oracle by Fen Inkwright. Okay. Okay. And I'm just going to read the reversal since that's what I pulled today. It says, rather than a traditional four-way crossroad, you've been living your life at a crossroad of 10, 20, 100 different roads. You pick up and discard new avenues too quickly for any of them to stick, leaving you full of great ideas but with nothing to show for it. It's time to settle down and focus on just one road or you'll be constantly directionless. Well, that is exactly what we've been talking about, right? And I like that analogy too, right? And right, a crossroads, right? You have to pick, okay, I arrived from one direction, right? What of maybe the other two or three am I going to take? But this is telling us, right, that sometimes, right, we can fall into of actually feeling like we have 100 things to do, 100 different avenues that are possible. And this is letting us know, right, that you're probably going to spend a lot of time in decision making if you have 100 roads to try to choose from. And that, right, like in order to go down all of them, you probably can't go very far because you have to get back and go to the next one. And so this is saying, right, like choose one thing or maybe like three things to focus on. Probably make the time period longer than you think you need to focus on it and actually go deep, right, into the subject, into whatever you're working on, into enjoying your food at lunchtime instead of maybe trying to multitask and watch a thing and read an email and also eat food. Um, that, right, this card's telling us also to slow down and think about, right, I think the downsides of what happens when we try to multitask or sort of integrate 100, right, different other people's values, right? If we read a lot of books or research or go on social media, like we can have so much information intake that it can feel like, oh, I'm never doing enough, right? Oh, I'm never gonna be able to do this life changing thing this month, and then also this one, and then also this, and also eat healthier, and also go get more exercise and also go outside and also work on my house and just all these different things. So this card is reminding us, right, that, okay, pick a couple things, focus on those, look at your values, right, maybe, and that will help you decide things and then just slow it down and just experience what it's like when we have less to focus on. All right, so thanks for joining me today on Everyday Tarot. Links for the tarot decks I talk about will always be in the show notes and on my website if you'd like to look at them or purchase them. And just as a reminder, the podcast comes out daily, Monday through Friday for all of 2025. All right, see you soon. Bye-bye.